Good morning. A lot has been going on in the life of the Kincades, and there have been many transitions lately. So delivering the message gives me much needed and intimate time with God. They say each minute of a sermon takes about 1 hour of prep. And JJ and I agree that it's at least that. I spend a lot of time searching, researching, and listening to God when I prepare a sermon. So thank you all for allowing me to be here and be close with all of you, because it allowed me the opportunity to get closer to and reconnect with God on a level that I'd been missing dearly. I first want to apologize to Sandra and Helen and the entire stewardship committee who saw the sermon title for today and thought, yay, he's going to get them to pledge and give to the church. So before I begin, it's still not too late to make your 2025 pledge and be thinking about your 2026. Is that good? Is that okay? Okay, good. But that is not the focus of my message for today. When I first read the suggested reading for today, I thought, wow, Luke must have been in a hurry. Luke is a man who gets straight to the point and often skips a lot of the fluff, but this was like extra Luke. It reminded me of the superhero sandwiches my best friend and I would make when we were kids. We'd put a saltine cracker, cheese, cracker, peanut butter, cracker, jelly, cracker, marshmallow fluff, cracker. Then we'd smash it all together, try to fit it in our mouth. I don't recall if it tasted good or not. Sure doesn't sound good to me now as I reflect on my younger days, but I got the same feeling reading the snippet this week from Luke. It's like he said, let's see what I can cram into this little section. We'll start with the first layer of Jesus saying, don't worry, I'm here. Stop it with the fear. Give everything away. Don't collect or buy stuff that someone would want to steal, but always be ready just in case. It just seemed like he took several ingredients and smashed them all together. And like my superhero sandwich, it was a lot to try to smash to fit. Remind you, these are my thoughts after reading it and are in no way the official way you should hear it too. I always wondered what Reverend Lynn Drake thought about my sermons as I was delivering them. If the theologian in her and years of education in seminary were internally turning her head like a confused dog when you said a word it recognized. If she has a really great poker face because she would always smile at me and cheer me on, regardless of what she may have been thinking on the inside. After going through our reading today, time and time again, I kept hearing a theme: fear. What is valuable? What are we buying? What are we selling? And what will God think when he finds out? A few years ago, my mother-in-law retired, and way too early because she's so young. But she wanted to take a big trip with the entire family to celebrate. So they took us all to Germany. I'll tell you this, you almost lost the Kincade family because we were ready to move there. Watching The Sound of Music recently brought those memories rushing back in. The hills were like fake backdrops that had been painted for us. It just couldn't be real. When we visited Munich, they were celebrating Pride there. The buildings were draped in flags honoring the LGBTQ population. It felt amazing to see a country celebrate a group of people who are marginalized and even targeted in much of the world. Then I had to take a second to chuckle to myself. Dachau, one of the concentration camps used during World War II by Hitler and the Nazi Party, was originally used for anyone who did not agree politically with Hitler, but also for homosexuals. It was much later that it started to be used for our Jewish brothers and sisters. Yet here I was, standing in his former land amongst his ancestors, celebrating the very people he tried to wipe off the face of the earth. It was such a moment of joy, love, and a much needed reminder of enduring hope. The only thing I wanted to do while we were in Germany was tour a concentration camp. I know, right? Don't hire me to be your travel guide unless you want to do incredibly sad and emotionally draining things, but there it was. I was thrilled to simply exist in Germany, so anything we did was a gift to me. But I could not go without honoring all those who had been through such traumatic and devastating time in our history. I could not go and pretend those events did not occur. I wanted to see, feel, and honor those beautiful humans, many who were just like me. The area of Dachau where the prisoners would first enter is now part of the museum that walks you through the "how did we get here?" It's an installation of all the steps from the loss of World War I to the rise of Hitler and the liberation. I had chills at every piece, every step through history, not only because it was such a terrible time in world history to read about, but because it all sounded far too familiar. The people of the country felt weak and humiliated after World War I and wanted a stronger Germany. Their economy was in shambles. Hitler portrayed himself as a strong leader, and they felt he would be the one to lead them back into prosperity. Hitler created a ministry to control the media, to control the messages and the messengers. They used films to portray Jews as being consumed by sex and money, portrayed them as sexual deviants. They created films portraying Jews exploiting and threatening Christians. Newspaper articles were used to spread the message that Germans must protect their family values and protect their families. They promoted articles that portrayed Jewish men as sexual predators and were a threat to German women. These depictions aimed to build fear and disgust among the German population and perpetuated the image of Jews as dangerous threats that needed to be eliminated. What about children? Yep, gotta protect them from the Jews too. The media portrayed Jews as pedophiles. They encouraged boycotting Jewish businesses because they were harming children. Hitler delivered numerous speeches filled with anti-Semitic rhetoric, blaming Jews for Germany's problems and calling for their persecution. Remember how he said Germany was feeling weak and humiliated after World War I? Well, guess who the media said was to blame for that? The Jews. Propaganda created fabricated stories about Jewish attacks on Germans to provoke hatred and justify violence against Jews. This constant barrage of anti-Semitic propaganda and suppression of those who dissented created a climate of fear, hatred, and indifference towards Jews, ultimately paving the way for the Holocaust. One of the things that resonated at Dachau and many other parts of Germany was the saying, "Never again." It's displayed prominently at the Dachau concentration camp memorial site. This message is inscribed on a wall behind a tomb and is written in 5 different languages: Yiddish, French, English, German, and Russian. The inscription, "Never again," is a powerful call to remember the atrocities of the Holocaust and other genocides in prayer that such events will never, ever be repeated. It functions as a warning to the world to actively defend society from terror and tyranny. They were selling fear, and everyone who is not the target of the offense was buying into it. Why do humans buy into fear so easily? Maybe because we're biologically wired and socially reinforced all of the time. We're survival-first creatures, fight or flight wiring. Our brains evolved to detect threats quickly. A part of our brains trigger a fear response in milliseconds, often before the rational part of our brain has time to do some fact-checking. So we tend to pay more attention to negative information than positive, because in the wild, ignoring danger could be fatal. We're so scared to lose. We're more motivated to avoid losses, real or perceived, than to gain something new. And fear exploits that instinct. Mob mentality. If others seem afraid, we assume there's a good reason and we mirror their concern. If everybody started running from the back of the church right now, we'd all be running too and ask questions later, right? Here's a huge one. Fear is marketable. Fear grabs attention. News outlets, politicians, and advertisers know fear gets clicks, shares, and votes. Leaders, marketers, and groups sometimes use fear to guide public behavior or loyalty. Only we can keep you safe. We will protect our kids from drag queens reading stories and making it fun to read. And today, constant exposure, social media, and 24/7 news can make threats feel closer and more frequent than they are. There was an incident at a Walmart halfway across the country, so now I'm afraid to go to Walmart. Fear could happen to me. Fear works like high-pressure sales tactics. It taps into our oldest survival instincts, shuts down our thinking, and loves situations where quick reactions beat careful truth-checking. Unless we purposely pause, check the facts, and put our trust in something steady. The first line of our reading today says what? Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. And the translation in the Message says this: what I'm trying to do here is get you to relax, not be so preoccupied with getting, so you can respond to God's giving. People who don't know God and the way He works fuss over these things, but you know God and how He works. Steep yourself in God reality, God initiative, God provisions. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met. Don't be afraid of missing out. You're my dearest friends. The Father wants to give you the very kingdom itself. I love that version. Jesus had already seen in his time on earth how fear motivated and affected us as humans. He was always trying to prepare us. And he's saying here, do not let fear manipulate you. Do not fall prey to it. You have to remind yourself that you are God's everything. When we sit down for dinner in our family, we carry on a tradition we do in youth group every Wednesday. Our lows and highs. What our low for the day was and what our high for the day was. And no matter the day, my first high is always seeing my son and my wife. No matter how bad the day could be, fixes it and brings everything right back into perspective. So as a father, I know what it means to love someone so unconditionally. I know what it means to feel like I would do anything for my child. I never want him to fear anything because I would do anything to protect him, to provide for him, to make his dreams come true. Realistically, I cannot do all those things in his life, though, can I? I cannot stop kids at school from hurting his feelings. I cannot afford to buy him anything his little heart desires, although I do try. I cannot make sure he is a zookeeper when he grows up. But what I can do is be there every step of the way. I can remind him every day not to buy into his own fears, self-doubts, or what anyone else may say. I will always be his number one fan. And Jesus is trying to tell us the same thing about our Father in heaven. In our reading, Jesus is also reminding us where our treasure is, that is also where our hearts are. What does that mean? Well, imagine you buy a ridiculously overpriced fear insurance policy from a shady salesman. Every month you send him more money, and in return he keeps you updated on every possible thing that might go wrong. Soon your calendar, thoughts, and conversations revolve around all the dangers he warns you about. You didn't just spend money, you invested your heart. That's what Jesus is warning about. Whatever you buy into with your money, time, attention, and trust will own more and more of your heart. If you invest in fear, your heart will live in fear. And some of you might be thinking, I don't buy into fear, Chris. I'm my own person. No one's swaying me. I'm smart enough to figure out what is real and what is fake. And if you're thinking that, and even if you aren't, I want you to think of if you've ever bought something at the checkout. Magazine, candy bar, gum, soda, one of those Kindle eggs for your kid. You bought into a scheme. You fell for it. Have you ever bought a chip flavor from the middle or eye level shelf in a grocery store? You fell for it. All a marketing plan to get you to buy into their ideas. In the same way, we buy into fear and hating others through media today in almost the exact way people fall for clever advertising. Only instead of selling us a product, they're selling us an emotion and a worldview. Why? Easy. Fear sells attention. News and social media algorithms reward outrage and anxiety because those keep us watching, clicking, and sharing. And you know what's sad now? We learned that clicks and likes tell them what to feed us by the shovel load, so we stopped doing that as much. So now they consider a pause to be the same proof of interest. You pause to look at it or read it, so they won. Shovel them more, force feed them everything we have on this topic, and go. The more extreme or alarming a story is, the more likely it is to spread, even if it's exaggerated or missing content. A shocking headline, even if it's fake, caused you to pause, bingo. A picture of something absurd that may have nothing to do with the article caused you to pause, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Then by shoveling you more of that content, repetition normalizes the message. Hearing the same framing of a group or issue over and over, even subtly, can make it feel true simply because it's now familiar. Over time, we can start to see that group or idea as a threat, even if we've never met them or been directly affected. Like people are eating cats and dogs. We fall for the fear propaganda because they create an us versus them framing. Media often frames stories as our side versus their side. And this taps into tribal instincts, protecting our people and distrusting them. Once people are labeled as dangerous, lazy, corrupt, or immoral, our compassion for them starts to shrink. They're stealing our jobs, they're all dangerous criminals. Wait, even the ones that sadly know our name because we go to their restaurants so often? I guess so, that's what I heard. Trans people are going to attack our women in the bathrooms. Wait, what? Oh yeah, men are going to dress as women to attack them in the public restrooms. Why would a man do that? Sexual assault is about power. Would dressing like a woman make them feel powerful? Well, they'll attack our kids in the bathrooms. Oh, okay. So do we make sure actual registered sex offenders are not in the bathrooms with our kids now? Do we have laws for them? Guess what? We do not. There are no general public restroom bans at the federal level. U.S. federal law does not specifically prohibit registered sex offenders, including those convicted of offenses involving minors, from using public restrooms. Or how about the family Christian value angle? They're threatening American families and our Christian family values. Ironically, while we're attacking others for attacking our Christian values, we aren't exactly following the teachings of Jesus Christ at all. We are not loving all others. We are not forgiving all others, nor showing them any mercy. We are not showing humility or serving all others. And we certainly are not treating others as we want to be treated or as Jesus would. In Proverbs 4:23, it says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." If we feed our hearts a steady diet of fear and resentment, that's what will grow there. Jesus' teaching in Matthew 6:21 fits too. If we invest our attention and trust in voices that peddle fear and division, our hearts will live there. How do we change all of this? How do we change what is being fed to us? I don't know. But I do know it begins with paying very close attention to where we are buying into and who is selling it to us. If they are not truly rooted in God's love for all of his children, then we need to find another source and stop giving our money to them. As normal people, how can you and I change this so our kids might hear more truths and less manipulation? Well, we can become critical consumers, meaning we do not accept headlines or stories at face value. Check sources, look for multiple perspectives, and recognize bias. Share well-researched content instead of sensational or fear-based stories. And here's one I would love to see, and I need to start doing again myself. Use your voice on social media. Share good news, true facts, and positive messages that fight against fear and hate. Talk kindly with others to show understanding and honesty. Help spread stories from people in places that don't get much attention. I had stopped getting on Facebook as much, even removing the app from my phone because I just couldn't doom scroll anymore. It was affecting my life too much. But I need to focus more on pushing the light through darkness. If we did that all 3 times this week, just think of the difference it would make on our feeds. I mean, most of us are friends on Facebook. Every time I get a friend suggestion anymore, it says, "You two have the whole church family in common." We can better support independent and ethical journalism, subscribe to and donate to news outlets that prioritize accuracy and fairness. Again, where our money is, so is our heart. We can tell our own stories. This one is a big one at Asbury Memorial and Wesley Oak. We often encourage people to share their stories. You could use blogs, videos, podcasts, or social platforms to share your experiences and your perspectives, because authentic storytelling humanizes issues and dismantles stereotypes. Finally, the word we don't like to talk about in church, we could vote and advocate for media accountability, support policies that promote transparency in media ownership and combat misinformation, encourage elected officials to protect press freedom, not cut it. So what is Jesus asking us to do here in our excerpt from Luke? He's saying, stop it. Stop buying into fear. Stop selling fear. And forget about fear, because I'm here to tell you God has you. He's telling us to get rid of wasteful things. And yes, while I try to convince my wife that we should get rid of most of our stuff because Jesus said we should, I don't think he was talking about material things only. He was talking about all things we obsess on that will not go with us. He was talking about all things weighing us down or cluttering our thoughts or lives. He's saying, put that crap out to the curb and focus on God. Focus on what God wants you to do in this life. Focus on loving God and loving your neighbor. Focus on helping the poor and the hungry, the sick and the sick in spirit, strangers and foreigners, prisoners and those in trouble, the weak and oppressed. These are not groups that I made up for today. These are who Jesus himself instructed us to focus on. Fear-mongering is cluttering our love, and it's making this country and this world a filthy place. The last part of today's reading talks about being ready for those thieves. If Germany could go back in time, packed with what they know now, if the world could go back in time, packed with what they know now, we would have been ready to stop the Holocaust, the fear-mongering, the hate and mistrust, the enormous loss of beautiful lives. But Jesus is saying, well, duh, people. We can all see things perfectly after they've already happened. The point here is that we have to know now. We have to stay awake and ahead of the evil. We have to stay 10 steps ahead of all those out there trying to steal our peace and create division, trying to turn us against one another so they have the control and the power, trying to manipulate our minds and trying to sell us a truckload of fear. So with a world revolving right now on fear, division, and lust for power, where is your heart? What are you investing in? What are you buying? What or who is in your wallet? Amen.